All right, I'll assume we're recording here. Welcome in another LNP Lancaster Online Sports Roundtable. I'm reporter John Walk with colleagues Mike Gross and Jeff Reinhart. On the horn with us this week is Annville-Cleona Athletic Director Tommy Long and Warwick Athletic Director Ryan Landis. So we're recording this a little over a week removed from Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf declaring that high school sports under the PIAA and under the Pennsylvania Independent Schools Athletic Association are permitted to resume activities in counties that are designated in the yellow and green phases. However, in order to resume those sports activities, all schools must create and publish an athletics health and safety plan, which must be approved by the local governing body of the school, i.e. the school boards usually. So with that said, we basically thought we'd have these two gentlemen on just to kind of walk us through what their process has been for each of their schools as they're likely chatting amongst themselves, school administrators, and looking at different CDC and PIAA guidelines and trying to figure out how can we make this thing work. With that said, I will throw it to my colleague Mike Gross for the first question.
Okay, welcome guys. This is for both of you. I think there's kind of a spectrum here when we're talking about just these preseason summer workout activity. I think there's a spectrum where on the one hand, you want the kids to get out there, you want to develop team connection, you want to not get behind anybody else. And on the other side of the spectrum is being safe and patient, and it's only the summer, let's not go nuts. Where are you sensing that your parents and your athletes and your coaches kind of are on that spectrum? Are you hearing more, man, let's go, let's get after it, or more, let's pump the brakes? Tommy, go ahead.
All right, yeah. I think here at Annville, we have a lot of people itching ready to go, but I also think, like Dr. Lombardi has said, the most important dates are that August 10th and August 17th date. So that's sort of even how we're approaching our plan. We're putting together a plan that sort of just outlines what it'll look like at Annville for kids to return and coaches to return July 1 to August 2nd. And then we're going to have another school board meeting where we actually get approved what it'll look like when the teams officially come back to school. So we're even trying to separate it in two different levels because there's so many questions and parts that got to be figured out. So we wanted to focus sort of in the two different areas.
Right, that makes sense. Ryan.
Yeah, I think everyone's excited to get back, but the bigger picture, the bigger goal is to get to play contest and not do anything that's going to push us backwards. I think the color scheme, what happens with that is people are hearing green and they're thinking green as in when you're driving down the road and you see green and you just go with it. Yeah. And I think there's more of a, kind of a gradual switch on to doing different things.
The plan, I spent a lot of time going over this template that the Department of Health put out today. And one of the things that they're talking about is that each school has to have a point person who has to be kind of trained in this stuff. And have you guys thought about that? Like, who's the point person going to be? Is it going to be you guys? And where do you go to get the training that you're supposed to have? What do you know about that so far?
Yeah, we met just yesterday. We met as our leadership team, and then we also had our athletic trainer involved, and also then our team doctor from Penn State Health. So they've really been our two people we've been going to sort of get that medical professional aspect of what we should and shouldn't be doing and what should be in the report and how we're handling those things. So they're really our focus points, and they're sort of guiding us, helping us through this process.
Yeah, and for me, our athletic trainer is a huge part of our athletic program. I joke that sometimes I shake hands and hug babies, and I have people behind me that do all the legwork, although I shouldn't joke about shaking hands and hugging babies, I guess, anymore. But Sheila's Hershey's our athletic trainer. So I think on paper, on the surface, I'll be the point person. But I'll work very closely with our athletic trainer, our team physician, different things like that, coming up with an education plan for coaches, for student athletes, and even for parents. There are a lot of resources out there. It's just at times it's overwhelming to sift through which resources.
It's got to be. Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah.
Hey guys, Dr. Lombardi told us last week that he tried to give you guys a heads up like a week before Governor Wolf made it official. He said he tried to reach out and say, hey, this is probably what's going to happen. You're probably going to have to come up with a plan. So I'm curious, some schools in LL have already passed their plan. How far along are you guys? Did you get an early start? And how close are you guys to handing over your document to your school board? Tommy.
Yeah, we actually had started about a week before Dr. Lombardi sent that out to us. We created the Google Doc, which I just called a brain dump, and we were just listing questions and trying to put answers in there. And it was shared amongst the leadership team, and we were sort of color coding things just to sort of get an idea. The hard part was not showing what exactly was going to happen. So once we got that sort of some direction, we were able to sort of clean that up. And we were working yesterday or the other day on finalizing that sort of document. We got some schools have been sharing templates, which have been awesome to use and really has helped the process. And then we got the guidelines and the template out yesterday from the Department of Ed. So we started putting stuff that we had in our document into that template that we're going to use, because that's the same template the school's going to end up using for their reopening. So that way it's similar for the school board to see the same document and all the different aspects. So we're at the point where we're putting everything in that template, sort of double checking it. We have our school board meeting set for June 29th, which is when we set it up, with the goal of starting July 1. That's sort of our target area at Annville.
Okay. How far along, Ryan, are you guys?
Yeah, I don't think we were blindsided. I think the PIAA did the best they could. This is such a fluid situation. So I put a plan together working with our upper administration and getting feedback from our athletic trainer. As it was completed over this past weekend and we were getting ready to move it to the next phase, then we got some new guidelines in this template. So we've really had to kind of adjust things. So our school board is being kept in the loop as to what's going on. Now, our next board meeting is July 7th. And with July 4th being a holiday, and we're closed on Fridays right now anyway, and the reality is that the academic piece is really the big one, and we want to be in line with the academic piece.
Come on, Ryan, be realistic, will you?
So we're focusing on that student athlete piece. So we didn't feel it was necessary with the holiday and with everything else going on to move our school board meeting up a week. So we just are keeping it with the July 7th. And then the goal then hopefully as well is to get our plan online probably a week before July 1st or whatever, so the public can see it, and then the board will look to hopefully approve that on the July 7th date.
This was never a race, right? I mean, even though some schools have already passed theirs, this was never like, let's get done first. Let's be the first school to get it done. You're more concerned about getting it right. So you're handing your school board a great plan. Agreed, both you guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't think it's a race on our end at all. I think the reality, and Tommy would probably agree with this, is we're prepared for the reality that things could change any day, and we're going to be having to juggle on the fly. If you're a type A control person, well, this is a tough time to be an administrator in general. But part of our job and part of what we experience is we're kind of used to the unknown and decisions on the fly, whether it's related to weather or spectator behavior or whatever it is. So you just try to have a calm demeanor and do the best you can with it.
Okay, so we've kind of gotten the legwork out of the way, just as far as getting people an idea of what this process looks like to get kind of a return to play a little bit, just in terms of these workouts. With that said, I know you guys are obviously still working through what those plans look like. I was talking to Rich Hanenkamp, the athletic director at Lancaster Catholic. They're going to get going this coming Monday, June 22nd. The reason I bring that up, their workouts are going to be 25 or less kids outside on the turf field, an hour to 90 minutes with each group, and basically just kind of going through different sports and athletes and whatnot. So with that said, I don't know if you can kind of give us maybe what an idea of what the first preliminary workouts, exercises are going to look like at Annville or Warwick. Are you going to be inside? Are you going to be outside? Are you going to be using kettlebells? Are you going to be doing benches and squats, etc.?
Yeah, we'll mainly be outside. As part of our proposal, we're allowing the coaches to bring teams into the weight room. However, our weight room is really small as it is. I mean, max capacity is 35. So we're talking that they're only going to be allowed to have 10 players in there at any given time, or including 10 total, so including coaches. So they're going to have to put, teams into sort of smaller groups and sort of rotate between being in and out. We have a nice structure where the weight room is right outside of a door, so they can go right in and out of a hallway and don't have to go into the rest of the school. So they can sort of be in and out of the building without really disrupting anything else within the building and requiring custodians to clean a lot of areas. So that's helping, and that's sort of why we're allowing that part of the weight room be included. But most of the workouts will be outside conditioning kind of activities that are taking place.
Ryan,
same thing.
Ours will be a mixture. We'll be outside a lot, but we aren't not letting our volleyball or basketball come in. I think the sports are used to the whether they have it officially with football, the heat acclimation. I think in general you kind of have that with any sport. When you have a break, you come back, and I feel I'm fortunate. My coaches have been really fantastic in talking to them and working with them. They've been understanding. Again, we'll give them some guidance. We'll give them some dialogue back and forth. But I don't want to overdo it, because it's that balance of giving them guidance. But I also I trust our coaches, and I think they'll do a pretty good job with this, even though it's a really new situation.
Guys, one of the things that I see over and over as I read through these templates and plans and advisories and stuff is cleanliness. And you have a group in, and then that group leaves, and then you have to clean, sanitize the area or the facility or whatever. It sounds almost like, if you take it literally, like, for example, in basketball, they'll play the JV game, and then you'll have to sanitize the gym before the varsity game. I don't know if that's literally true, but that's kind of what it sounds like. So what do you guys know about, are you going to have to buy equipment? Or are you going to have to train people? What's involved in the cleanliness of facilities piece of this?
Yeah, that was a big part of our meeting yesterday. We had our facilities director with us, and sort of trying to come up with a plan. That's also, I think, why we broke it down into just let's focus on the summer, where it's sort of a little bit more laid back, trying to get them on campus, compared to when we're having them in games and things like that. And I sat in the meeting today, being an assistant principal, trying to put the school part together, and the struggle we're trying to figure out how the kids are going to get bused to school and how that's going to work, and all those kind of pieces. Like Ryan touched on, the academic part of this is just a nightmare, trying to work out all these logistics and dealing with families and getting kids to school. So in terms of what we're trying to do just for the summer, our director of buildings and grounds confirmed he had some cleaning supplies, hand sanitizer that we can put out in our sheds that the coaches would take with them out to their fields. They'd use between different groups, rotating around. They'd wipe balls down in between different groups. So basically that's the plan. We have the supplies to get through the summer. But his concern was, how much of that supply are we going to need? Because we're going to need that when we come to school, and things are back ordered right now. So that's the other piece we're trying to juggle, that we're going to need these things to open school. So we can't use them all this summer for some athletic events either.
Ryan, you're up, man.
Yeah. So Tommy hit on this, and I've told my coaches this as well. I mean, we're thinking about it. We live this in our heads. We know the hurdles that are out there when the contests start. But that's 2 months away at the earliest. So I'm not, with my coaches, worrying about plans of what do sporting events look like in terms of spectators, in terms of JV, and then a varsity game. We've read that information, but we got a long way to go till we get to that point. So I think you'll notice in a lot of the guidance, it uses the phrase "when possible." And so I think you have to just keep telling yourself that we're going to try to do what we can. Nothing's perfect, but some of the guidance that I think is pretty easy to follow is you tell kids, like, when if you're a golfer, you bring your golf clubs to practice. If you're a bowler, you bring your bowling ball. So now, if you're an athlete of any sport, bringing your own water bottle is part of it right now. And don't rely on us, because we're not going to give you water bottles or the hydration systems that we've been using. You have to have your own individual water bottle. So that's an easy way to try to cut back on the interaction between people. Our locker rooms are going to start closed right now. Student athletes are being asked to come to all types of practices, workouts, open gyms, dressed, ready to go, so they don't have to change at the school. We've shifted stuff in our weight room. We've spread out the cardio and some of the benches. So we're in that 6-foot range. We're fortunate we have a pretty nice size weight room. And some of the stuff in the weight room, if it's kettlebells or it's bands or whatever, then take it outside and then spread out there. So there's some realistic, easy things that you can do without becoming overwhelmed. So that's where, again, I think you have to do the best you can, but understand it's when possible.
I'm curious for both you guys, what this 4 months has been like for you. I mean, this was, dropped in your lap on a Friday in March, and you spent the last 4 months, quarantine, stay at home, trying to juggle all this. I'm sure you miss your kids, you miss your colleagues, you miss being out. Just, for both of you guys, how have you coped and how have you gotten through these 4 months, Tommy?
It's been very challenging for sure. I think it's been challenging for everybody having to adjust to the sort of the new norm. I look at my role as being also assistant principal. So I picked up a number of assistant principal duties while we were off, out of school, sort of helping oversee some teacher groups and doing some of that aspect that I wasn't doing since we didn't have sporting events going on. But we also had sort of the planning for sports. And then we had the Berks football merger has been keeping me nice and busy as well. And, I've 3 kids that were home doing schoolwork and trying to sort of stay on top of them while I was doing my work. Luckily, they're old enough that they can sort of manage themselves for the most part. So I didn't have to sort of really work with them. But, I have a niece and a nephew my nephew is, special needs, and he was with his grandma and, trying to keep them focused learning online. I saw some of the challenges there that I know some of the families were dealing with. So it's been a reality check, I think, for a lot of people, especially I can speak for my kids. My mother-in-law and my sister-in-law ended up getting the virus. So we saw that piece and having to be quarantined from them for a number of days, the 14 days, and not being able to see them and watch them go through the process. And so I think it's been a sort of a very eye-opening experience for us to sort of learn that we can do things differently, but it doesn't mean it's worse.
How you holding up, Ryan?
Well, I, like Tommy, I have 3 children. My wife and I have 3 children as well. And so early on, as challenging as it was, there was also that guilty piece, a little bit of, I'm getting to be home. I'm getting to be with my family. Like, this part of it's kind of an interesting change for me, until I think I got to the point where I might have maybe been driving them a little crazy because they're not used to my humor at home. But I'll tell you what's been the toughest part for me. And I knew this as a coach. You have a special relationship when you coach, but boy, did I miss the student athletes. It made me realize that, even in my role as an athletic director and going to sporting events and getting to know the kids, you build a relationship with them, and seeing them at graduation practice and underclassmen turning in stuff, it was great to see them. But that hit me harder, I think, than anything, was just realizing how much I missed the interaction with the kids. And I told someone that, we got to the end and it felt like you're getting to the end of a marathon. I can't run a marathon, but I use that saying, whatever. But now you get to the end of a marathon, you take a breath because you made it. But now we got to the end of that marathon and it's like, there's another one right in front of us. And so that's the mental part, I think, trying to deal with right now.
The last time I called Ryan, I think I heard all 3 kids in the background. In fact, my wife was sitting there and she said, "Is he having a party or something?" And I said, "No, he just has kids. He just has kids."
It's always a party at the Land.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of racket, a lot of ambient noise there.
Mike or Jeff, one last question from you guys.
Last thing for me is just I applaud both you guys. Mr. Long and Mr. Landis are very active on social media promoting their programs and their kids. And they do an awesome job keeping the community updated on where they're at and what they're going through. And, if you're on the Twitter machine, definitely give both these guys a follow because they really keep the AC and Warwick communities up to date and trying to keep everybody positive and what's going on. So kudos to both you guys. You're awesome with us. And we can't thank you enough. So hang tough.
Thank you.
Let's
Yep.
talk about actual sports real quick, because I guess this is for Tommy. The football proposal. Are you pretty confident that the proposal, at least as far as the sectional alignment that we saw yesterday that Jeff wrote about, that you pretty confident that that's going to happen? I think that's what everybody expected. And do you feel like that's in substance what's going to be reality?
The reality is, I feel confident, but I also, there's a lot of people involved in this process, and it still needs approvals. So until that final vote is passed and it gets passed, that's when I'll start feeling confident that we're ready to move on. So I think a lot of people have done a lot of hard work to make this happen. I think it's good for both leagues, like we've said, a couple of times. So I'm excited to see it happen, but I also know the journey is not done yet. It still needs to go through the appropriate approval process before we move forward.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
All right, guys.
Oh, hey guys, we really appreciate your time, and as if you guys don't do enough already behind the scenes, now basically trying to take on these responsibilities and learn everything that you can about keeping these kids safe and kind of being a little bit of the point person on that. And that's, even more things dumped on your shoulders, and try to take a breath, and fingers crossed we can all be chatting fall sports here in another month or so as kids get back out in the fields and hopefully things start looking up. So, all right, on behalf of Mike and Jeff, thank you to Tommy, thanks to Ryan, thanks to you guys for watching. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Take
Thank you very
care.
much.
See ya.